So today I want to talk about foreshortening, and I think foreshortening is something that you're going to encounter no matter what in your freehand drawing while I get seated. The kind of foreshortening that you will get typically will come up when you are dealing with characters at high and low angles, but of course you'll also get foreshortened limbs showing up all the time. Arms or legs moving towards the camera or away from it. So let me get started on something here. I'm going to start with one. I'm going to try to stay within my boundaries today in this demo, but I'm going to start with one from a very low angle looking up, and I'm trying very hard to keep the gestural life in the figure, so I want to get a twist, a bit of a twist going right off the bat in the torso and the hip constructions. As you can see, this hip construction that I'm building is very much from below, so I'm trying to get that established. I'm imagining low horizon line somewhere down here and a low vanishing points on it, and I'm just going to have some fun here and just throw in a really big foot as if we're getting in close to the camera. So when I do a leg, even a leg like this from this kind of perspective, I want to get an exaggerated sense of the S curve running through the form. I don't want it to stiffen up. My biggest fear in a situation like this is you get so focused on getting the angle right, getting all of the proportions working, so on, that you somehow miss out on some of the gestural life that you should be getting into the pose. So I work doubly hard to make sure that doesn't happen under these circumstances. Now, I have mapped that foot in. I'm angling across like this, and I'm thinking that foot, even though if that hip's up, that shoulder's down, then this is going to be carrying a little more weight at least. Even though the legs are spread, I want to get the feeling that this one's angling out even more, so I'm going to pull it way over here. It's as if we're going to be on a glass floor, though. I want to make sure we see a little of the sole of the foot here. So I'm just going to draw the sole in right away, and then just build a basic foot formation. Now, I may have to adjust that a little bit as I go. Once again, even with this fully extended leg, I want to make sure that I get some kind of an S curve running through it. So I want to make sure that the cylinders that form up the lower leg and the upper leg don't quite line up perfectly. The one in the upper leg is a little forward, the other one pushed back a bit, so that you start to get a bit of that S curve working through it. Okay, now I've got a feeling the proportions are looking good. This is definitely condensing and compressing up to the top, which is what I'm looking for. Arms. I guess just arms at the side for now, but I do want to get a little bit of exaggerated perspective into it. So now, in terms of foreshortening the limbs, I like to think about cross-sectioning, cross-contouring, so I want to build a little bit of that in as I go. Get a feel for the three-dimensional form. If you are thinking it and feeling it in 3D, then the chances are you're going to be relating that to a viewer as well. So just basically working out kind of mapping it in right now, blocking everything in. I'll worry about getting any kind of detailing into it later, but I want some exaggeration through here, although again, not too much, because this is not coming in as close by far to the camera as the leg is. Now, I just want to angle, if the arms are at rest, then this gives me a cue as to where the fingertip should be on the other arm. I'm thinking in this case, even with the twisting going on, that you're really not going to see probably much of that shoulder. One of the things that happens when you've got the upper body and the shoulder attachments, if you're building a figure from the top, you're going to be throwing in, say, that's your mannequin, chest. And you're going to have trapezius up here, angling up, and shoulders, something like that. Pardon me. So forearm, and I think it's just a bit of a change of direction at the palm. Let me just start reinforcing my center line, which I think is always a good thing to do. This part you're not going to see much of. It's really being covered. The angle of the curvature at the chest should be about as strong as it ever is going to be. So let's define it with a cross contour line. Give it a nice curve. Even here, if you're building mannequin torso in, give that a nice curve. Let's just feel that angle up and the almost barrel quality that the upper body, the torso has. Get that working for you. Okay, so thumbs just basically at rest here. And then I just want to mock in something. Very quickly, I want to get an angle, kind of an arcing feel through where the fingers will be, just to get a kind of sense of the blocking here. So that'd be first, second finger, third, fourth, kind of curling inwards, as fingers tend to do. First one probably, maybe about here. I'm not looking for anything special from this, just a kind of a relaxed feel to it. As I like to say, I tend to find you get a better end result if you keep the head at a different alignment from the torso. So let's just change this character up. And maybe something like this, have him looking this way. Eye sockets way up high, a little bit of forehead just peeking through here. Jawline basically in a good strong V shape. Ear way down low, and even over here, and neck. So now you've got the fundamentals in place, and you can start to play with that. But this gives you a figure which clearly has a lot more leg proportionally than it would normally have if you were dealing with it from an eye level point of view. And so you want to make that work and create that wonderful feel of the depth and the low angle. So definitely a character on a glass floor. So just map in where those would go. I'm just creating a little bit of a gap between the first finger and the other rack of fingers. I think thumb maybe over here, change up here, and then in to the ball of the thumb. Getting that very distinctive angle here, the flare out of the forearm just below the biceps, triceps, the upper arm. All right. So that is the first thing I want to talk about today, which is laying in this kind of foreshortening that you deal with when you're dealing with high and low angles. The other thing I want to talk about with this is it's a proportional concern. You're trying to get a lot longer down through here than you are in the upper body. You also want to make sure that the cross contours work with the shapes you're dealing with. So you look at the degree of curvature here. You look at how the knee is curved here, here, here. You look at that degree of curvature and the degree of curvature you put into the cylinders here of the arm. And again, I've already mentioned it, that the curvature here at the chest line. And then if you're starting to drop in, say, ribs, you want a nice, strong arcing feeling through here, an arcing motion. Crotch is one of the things that runs contrary. Because in this case, anything that's angling upwards, that's angling away from the camera, these curves are what are really going to help to define that. And you really want to minimize any curves moving in the opposite direction. And there will be the odd one depending upon the shapes you're dealing with, and even more so if you start to talk about laying drapery on. The point is that you want to do whatever you can as an illusionist, because we are creating an illusionist, like an illusionist. As an illusionist, you want to create the illusion of three-dimensional depth. You want to create the illusion of the fact that we are looking up the figure. So you want to enhance all curves going in this direction and downplay anything moving in the other direction, because those will work against the illusion of the depth that you're angling for. All right. That's demo number 1, and now I want to talk about foreshortening of limbs, but let's do that with a fresh video.